everybody can do this. But the thing is actually the apprenticeship is seen as a way for people who can't afford to go to college. This is a non-privileged way. But I read this from the California thing. This program can increase access to the profession for prospective lawyers who cannot afford to take time off of pay the substantial tuition costs required to attend law school. It also allows apprentices to train in the kind of legal career they hope to pursue, particularly for non-traditional careers, such as jobs in public interest and solo practice.
Well, the reason that I think it's privilege isn't because the program exists, is that she, at this point in her career, can take an apprenticeship like this. When a lot of people who would like to do these kind of things, like I remember when I was still hiring the interns at the radio station I worked at, there were people who had to work a full-time job still and couldn't afford to work for the amount of money that I was able to pay as an intern.
Well, if they're not paying their interns, here's the thing. When I was an architect, I had to do an internship.
Right.
And there was this whole thing that happened at a firm that I worked for, and these were student interns that they hadn't been paying, and the IRS went after them.
Right.
And there's a whole big thing with the apprenticeships and the interns in these professions. They have to pay them because they're followed because these hours go into when you're done.
So but they don't have to pay them much.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
Do. They do.
No,
they
there
do
is
have to
not
pay
a
them.
guarantee wage if you're an internship or apprentice. So they can say, here's the basic, the wage can be subsistence level or minimum wage.
Maybe at a radio station, but that's not the same for professional apprenticeships and interns because you're doing the work under them and you're getting certain hours and things. I don't think it's like that because they got really, really, really came down hard for. My experience wasn't that, and I don't think if you're working under a judge doing legal work, it's the same as just getting an internship at. When I was doing my quote internship or apprenticeship, it was followed up by, because this goes into doing your exam, it was followed up by the accrediting board, which was called NCARB.
Yes.
And I had to get hours in certain things, which was like overseeing construction sites and doing construction documents and doing all these really hard technical things. And they couldn't just pay you pennies for doing that work.
I think that in most things, I think that the amount of the wage because it's entry level. So whatever the entry level wage for this is something that she can very easily absorb because she's Kim Kardashian West. I'm just saying that most women her age, if they were, let's say that you were a mom with 2 kids, like what she is, but she didn't have the bankroll of being a Kim Kardashian West, it would make it a much more difficult road to be able to do
Well,
this.
I'm still going back to what it says on the website, which it says it's increased access to the profession for lawyers who cannot afford to take time off of pay for the substantial tuition costs.
Right.
It's there to increase access to the profession. And my opinion, and most people's opinion, because you can't become an architect in Minnesota without having a degree, but in Wisconsin you can.
Yes.
And I've always thought it's better to keep the apprenticeship path open for most professions because it increases access. I think it's better to have apprenticeships for professions. I don't think it always is.
I am not discounting that.
I don't know. I mean, Kim Kardashian, yes, is privileged. I'm not saying she's doing it because she has easier access. I'm just saying I liked that professions in days ago came up from an apprenticeship model, and that might be a better way in the future to come up than just always having to go to university.
Oh, I'm fine with that in theory. I think that and I know that in a lot of things,
aside from Kim,
exactly. Aside from Kim being able to go and do it, and again, fine. It just feels like such a superfluous hobby with the way that she has a tendency to fly through things. So hopefully it is something where she really does do it because she does have such a large platform that she probably could do a lot of good because there are people who would have much less of a voice and nobody would be telling their story, and she can. So I'm all for that. And hopefully she becomes that person where, this is like, is it Erin Brockovich? Some of those, one of those old things we're like, oh my gosh, she's, Kim Kardashian West was known for a sex tape. And then as she aged into, into being a useful human being,
criminal defense.
Right. And maybe she does go out there and do some amazing things, which would be a great story.
Yeah, she's not going to. Well, we don't know what she's going to do. Maybe she will just be on Instagram and do makeup and photo shoots forever. Maybe when she's in her 50s, she's in her 50s, she'll be well-known for being a criminal lawyer. No one knows what the future holds.
Right.
Yeah, my point was, I'm kind of glad that this shown attention on the apprenticeship model for professions, because I wish that was kind of a more common way, and people didn't always have to go to university for things, because I think there's more than one way to a path to a career.
Sam, I feel like, when we were going back and forth in the chat, at first you were like, no, this is for sure privilege. Have you been swayed?
I have been educated.
Okay.
Because I didn't, I know about internships, and from having worked for different companies that had interns, and some that paid their interns and some that did not.
It's illegal not to.
No, it's not. It interns, I'm not talking about apprentices.
If they are for sure getting school credit. So if they do it, and, so if you are getting some sort of school credit and there is some reciprocity where it's like, for your work, you get this credit. And they did change it. There are some things now where they have slightly over the years increased the law. So it is much more difficult to have unpaid internships.
Yeah.
But there are ways to grandfather people in and call them volunteers. Yeah. And like businesses will figure out ways to get around it if they don't have a budget. But it's not as
easy as it was.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well anyways, go on, Sam.
So I've been educated about apprenticeships, and I appreciate that. But but I as far as am I swayed about the Kim Kardashian, how I feel about Kim Kardashian pursuing an apprenticeship thus far? As I said, I'm an apologist for the Kardashians, but I'm kind of impressed thus far because she's not taking on superficialities. Right. In the legal world, there's been some substance to what she has been interested in and applied herself to. So that's why I'm kind of impressed.
Yeah. So speaking of superficialities, that brings us to our final segment today. Does this make me old segment? And Judy, I believe you have this article, don't you? So turtlenecks and courtroom catwalks, the fashion distractions of the female scammer. I love this story. Absolutely love this story. So.
This is an interesting article. It's not, these kind of articles I never like.
Okay.
Because this is the kind of thing that would never be written about men.
True.
And it's the kind of thing that gets written about female politicians all the time, too, that would never get written about male politicians. Right. Sam, do you have it in front of you? Do you want to sum it up maybe? And then I'll comment?
Sure. The main focus of the article was our favorite Elizabeth Holmes.
Yes.
And talking about how she has adopted a certain look for court. Like, remember she had taken on the Steve Jobs black turtleneck?
Yeah.
And quasi-high fashion look. She has really been dressing herself down. And this has been true of other high-profile women who've been in court recently. And it turns out that there is a practice of courtroom fashion psychology.
Right.
That seems to be at play here. And one quote I came across said that clothing, accessories, even hair and makeup influence judgments. So, and particularly for women in the courtroom.
Right.
And you're right,
yeah,
Jen,
obviously.
men are judged less harshly for their appearance in the courtroom than women are. So it's in the public eye right now because there have been several women who are scam artists, Elizabeth Holmes being one of them, and the other being
Anna Delvey.
Anna Delvey. Who are in the public eye, who are now in the courtroom, and who are adjusting their looks to be more courtroom appealing, you might say.
And I do remember from watching, because I am one of those people that watches a lot of like when court TV was a huge thing, watching all that. So I do know that there have always been, when you were working with a particular legal team, that would be part of it. They would have, we'll call it a stylist that would work with you and go, just as they would coach them on the ways, if they were going to give testimony, they would coach them on their persona and how they should act and the kind of, what type of personality do you want to portray while you're going through this process. So I know that there's always been a matter of dress this way. That's why when they have, when you see articles, there is a description of they came in wearing this, and they will make a point of if it's an outfit that they got to pick or an orange jumpsuit or whatever it was that they got, the corner pointed thing. I think it is interesting because these two particular women that are in this article, if you talk about the Elizabeth Holmes and the Anna Delvey, they were two people that were so focused on fashion before, like so much of their identity was based upon a particular thing that they were known for wearing. Like Anna Delvey, she was the one, and we didn't do as much talking about her, but she was the one who had bootlegged herself into New York high society and was writing all of these giant checks and staying at these hotels and basically just, you know, hopping from hotel to hotel, and never had any of this money and didn't intend on having any of this money, and was just going, oh, a wire transfer is going to come in from my family in Europe, and then people would just keep bankrolling her. And she's like, I'm going to open a gallery in a club, and they're like, oh, sure. And she's just spending all this money that she didn't have. You know, when Elizabeth Holmes, I still think is a scammer, don't get me wrong, but at least she was a little more, and we had this conversation, a little more on that, well, maybe this might work and we'll just fake it for a while, and eventually maybe the science will change and we'll be able to actually follow through on this stuff. When Anna Delvey had none of it, you know, kind of thing, and knew that there was no money, I think.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so if you're a man, you wear a suit, a white shirt, and a tie, and you're done.
Right.
And if you're a woman, there are an infinite amount of things that you can do or not do, or if you choose to do, and you're judged on in a million different ways. And even the men get these people to style them and tell them what to wear, but it's much simpler. And I mean, even just think about Hillary Clinton.
Right.
And how she would dress in the debates. And her male counterparts don't have that. You know,
it's just blue tie or red tie.
Yeah, or if you're on the plane as a male politician and you want to look a little bit more casual, you take your jacket off, you take your tie off, you roll up your sleeves, you button down a few buttons. What's the woman's equivalent of that?
Right.
Without looking suggestive or not put together or unhinged. The women don't have that choice. And I always said this too. Okay, think about Bernie Sanders. When he ran,
right,
he had gray, unkempt hair, those glasses. He shouted. If there was a female equivalent of Bernie Sanders who came into the race, what do you think America would do with that?
Right.
Yeah.
Gray.
They would tear her apart.
Messy hair.
Yep.
Glasses. Shouting. Teeth like that. Wrinkled. That wouldn't have even played for half a minute.
Right.
So I just think that, like I said, this is a weird article to me because if there would not ever be a male equivalent of this article written or talked about because it's just bananas. And I don't know what to say even.
Yep. It's a great point, Judy, because I haven't seen anything about Billy McFarland.
Fair enough.
Fire Festival.
Oh, you never will.
And how he's looking in the courtroom. I
True,
haven't yet
very
to see
true.
anything about that.
Every time people talked about how Hillary Clinton looked in a debate, I was like, excuse me, Bernie Sanders.
Right.
How does he look any second of any day? And everybody was like, what do you mean? And I was like, he looks like he's an insane person.
He looks a hot mess.
I mean, let's just compare him. I'm not saying that it isn't okay for him to look like that, but we're judging that Hillary Clinton's debate outfit was gray and looked boring.
Yeah.
You know, she's like exquisitely dressed every moment.
Yeah.
Right.
And can't ever not look. Like I said, the women don't even have the choice to have that casual, I'm on a plane, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and talk. If a woman did that, it would be like, well, woohoo? What
Is
are
she
you
okay?
doing?
Right.
Now,
She's
what are
falling
you
apart.
trying to do? Now you're looking too sexy for me. You know, I mean, and it's body parts too. Remember when Obama wore
Had her arms
shorts
out.
once? Or she would just show her arms and there would be an article about arms.
Right.
Like I want a whole article about Arnold Schwarzenegger's
Lady arms.
neck. You know, like you've got a weird neck, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like quit showing me your neck. I don't need it. So
I am going to start paying more attention to Billy McFarland's outfits next time he has up in court. Because now I'm going to start noticing, because you have to be intentional about these things for a while. So now that you have spoken that to truth,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to start trying to pay more attention to what guys wear.
I think I remember kind of back in the day when the Menendez brothers were going through their court experience.
Right.
Didn't they start out in suits, and then at some point their lawyer wanted them to look like young boys, and so they switched to the shirt and the sweaters.
Polos, and they had polos,
Yeah.
and like they started wearing cardigans or something.
Yeah,
I think for a while.
because you're not going to murder somebody in a cardigan.
Well, they do
you
this
look a lot
for-
more harmless if you're in a cardigan.
Exactly.
They do this for men too. I mean, tell me that Steve Avery from Making a Murderer, that his lawyer isn't picking out everything he wears, and his, because if it was up to him, he'd have like a shaved head and a grizzly man beard,
Right? And they go, "No, you look like you live in a hovel." Yeah, so they do tidy them up and bring
don't
them a
show
suit.
your tattoos and all this. I mean, they are doing that for men too, but guess